So it might have been a poster on your wall, or you've been looking at these things online on Instagram, on social media, but you finally saved up enough money and you got your dream car. What is that dream car? It's a Porsche 997 Turbo. Now, the 997 Turbo first came out in 2007, and it was available in a Tiptronic or a 6-speed, and they came with 480 horsepower. This 3.6 liter engine was an absolute beast. Shortly after that, they did a little bit of a change, and in 2010, they came out with the 997.2, and you could get this as a turbo or a Turbo S. And this was a 3.8 liter direct fuel injected engine that came with a little bit more power at around 520, 530 horsepower. But forget that, because you got your dream car, and that is a 2007 997 Turbo. When these cars first came out, they were such an incredible machine compared to the 996 Turbo. The 997 Turbo had so much opportunity to get more power, and that's what I'm going to talk to you about today, is how to start building your Porsche 997 Turbo. It's no surprise that nowadays you can build these cars up and get well over 1,500 horsepower, but for most people, they want to do the safest, most reliable thing to get good performance out of this car. Let's be honest, these things have around 50,000 miles, and they're now almost 10-year-old vehicles, and they don't have warranty. So you want to make sure that you're doing the right mods to get the safest, most reliable performance you can get, but still do some killing on the streets. Let's talk about how you get power out of a 997 Turbo. The Porsche engines are extremely strong and reliable. Without a doubt, these things are bulletproof. I have never personally seen something go wrong with a basic tuned 997 Turbo. So one of the first things that you're going to do when you go to modify your Porsche 997 Turbo is an ECU Flash. What is an ECU Flash? An ECU Flash is tuning the car's computer to change things such as boost, fuel, timing, throttle response, all types of variables. People have been tuning these cars since 2007. I don't think I can imagine a car without a tune. Because these Porsche engines are so strong, typically an ECU Flash in a 997 Turbo gets you almost 150 horsepower to the crank over stock. Now, what do you need to achieve that? Because these cars are a little older, people think they need to do stuff. Let's be honest, this isn't a Subaru, this isn't a Supra. It's a very straight formula on how to get more power out of these vehicles. So when you do the ECU Flash, you don't need to wait to add all these parts at once. If you're going to go ahead and do an exhaust or an intake or some diverter valves, do your flash first, because that stuff, you don't need to custom tune for it. The only time you need a true custom tune is if you're doing things like bigger turbos, different injectors, fuel pump, etc. These cars are designed to work off the factory components without any issues. The ECU Flash on these cars is done via the OBD2 port. To do an ECU Flash, you have to connect it and you have to read out the factory file. Now, our VR-tuned ECU Flash system is designed to say, hey, here's a cable, plug it in, read this file out, okay? When you read the file out, that is your true original file. Now, hopefully you've bought a car that hasn't been molested. But if it already had a tune on it, not a problem. We can see what's been done and we can still improve it. But if you have a stock file, when you read it out, we then create a custom tune based on that stock file. And these tunes are always designed for 91 or 93 octane. When you flash back the tune to the car, that is a process that is very easy and you can do in your garage, your house, to flash it. You don't need to go to a dyno. You don't need to have some professional shop do it. It's a very straightforward process that we provide detailed instructions. When it comes to the 997 Turbo, one thing a lot of people miss out on. The spark plugs in the 997 Turbo always need to be changed when you do an ECU Flash. That is because the stock heat range doesn't want to help support that much increase in power and boost. So typically we go to a Denso IK22 or an NGK BKR7EIX. It's insane I even remember that. But the colder spark plug is what makes these things really run well with the tune. Usually stock spark plugs, they are out of that heat range at about 20,000 miles. So the number one thing to do, tune, spark plugs. Now, how to get that full 130 horsepower, 150 horsepower increase over stock? It's about the exhaust system. And that is because the factory Porsche 997 turbo exhaust is extremely restrictive. Now, the newer exhaust systems, they've changed to be a little bit modular, but the 997 turbo, the full exhaust was one piece, meaning right from the turbos, you have the cats built into the muffler. So you can't just buy a new muffler because it's part of the cats as well. So when you go to modify this car, you really need three things. Three things will give you a huge change in power, and that is the ECU Flash, colder spark plugs, and an exhaust system. A high flow exhaust system will generate about 20 to 30 horsepower, and that's how you get that 150 horsepower improvement with the ECU Flash. That's because the ECU Flash is telling the car, hey, I want to deliver this much boost, this much power, but as soon as that exhaust gas goes out to come out of the turbos, it hits this restrictive muffler and catalytic converter that doesn't build up the power it needs to. You typically see a good amount of torque increase, but you lose that mid to top end power. And that is what needs to be changed. When it comes to exhaust systems, because of the price of the car and where things are at, there are so many different options. The days of needing a $7,000 exhaust, long gone. But there's a lot of good exhaust systems available for the 997 Turbo in the $2,500 to $3,500 range. Everything from something like Army Tricks to Fab Speed, or even some higher end systems like you have Klein, Miltech, and whatnot. I generally recommend exhaust systems that fit the need and sound that you like. Exhaust systems can play a huge role in how happy you are driving that car. And that's because they sound different between the muffler styles to the material. Stainless exhaust will sound a little bit different than titanium exhaust based upon how the metal resonates. And also, you'll hear a different sound depending on if it's a high flow cat or if it's catless. The mufflers are very important that you get something that is designed specifically for your year range, because there is a difference between a 997 and a 997.2 exhaust. So when you're looking at these different exhaust systems, make sure you find the one specifically for the 997.1. So now that you've done the ECU Flash, the spark plugs, and the exhaust system, what is there left to do for your basic intro mods on the 997 Turbo? Well, there is a whole range of things that you can go down and look at. Everything's from replacement boost recirculating valves to coil packs, intercoolers, and more. These are definitely some optional parts in building the performance of it before we get into a larger stage package, you can call it. Boost recirculation valves are a good thing to have. Now on the 997.1 Turbo, they built the blow-off valves, diverter valves into the turbocharger. So these things actually fit into the compressor side, and that's what helps regulate the boost. Much like a blow-off valve or diverter valve on a different car, the factory ones have a rubber diaphragm and spring, and as you increase boost and horsepower, those things can start fluttering, which loses power because you're then losing boost pressure. So the aftermarket boost recirculating valves, also known as BRVs, are a great upgrade to do. Anything from Fords to TurboSmart and more is a great upgrade to add. And since you're already down there doing the exhaust system, changing these out is a simple thing. This is a great product to do that's in the $200 to $300 range. If we're going down the list of mods for a good horsepower car, another thing to do is the intercoolers. Factory intercoolers are a typical tube and fin design. So this isn't the most efficient design, and they're definitely not thicker. So they don't have the best flow as you start increasing power. Now there's a difference between a 1,000 horsepower intercooler and just wanting to get a better, more efficient intercooler. There's many different options available. That's a direct plug and play for the 997 Turbo. We have our own VRP intercoolers, and there's ones from many different other companies. And because it's a bar and plate design, these intercoolers will flow much better, keeping those charge temperatures down. Another mod you can do for the 997 Turbo as your first stage of performance mods is the plenum and throttle body. Now, the plenum is the piece that's right behind the throttle body. That's kind of hard to see because it's tucked under the deck lid there. Now, this plenum is a T shape. And I have to be honest with you, we've done many testing years ago, and the plenum isn't just the main factor, because as the air goes through there, the engine works off pulses. So the airflow isn't going to be the only factor of how you get more efficient air to each side of the engine, but it's the size of the throttle body. Now what you can do is you can do an upgraded GT3 throttle body fitted to a plenum such as the one from IPD. Now the GT3 throttle body is bigger than the stock throttle body. The stock throttle body is roughly about 74 millimeters, where the GT3 throttle body is 82 millimeters. The difference there is quite a lot. And when you talk about turbocharged vehicles, at the end of the day, what matters is how much airflow you get in and how much airflow you get out. And these things will love that. Your turbos will spool up faster, you'll have much more low-end torque, and you will keep pulling all the way to redline. So at the end of the day, when it comes to modifying your 997 turbo, the first step you want to do is these basic bolt-ons. Don't go shooting for the moon with a full 2,000 horsepower build or get sucked into one of these stage packages. It's a very simple formula that we've been doing for years, proving it on the dyno, driving on the streets. You need to do an ECU tune, you need to do spark plugs, you need to do an exhaust. And if you want some extra benefit, boost recirculation valves, intercoolers, and a plenum and throttle body. So congratulations on your 997 Turbo and finding us. Because of our experience with the Porsche platforms and owning one myself, I know what it really takes to make these things work. So this is just the intro to modifying that 997 Turbo, but there's more things to go and learn. Everything from what is the best clutch to do, to suspension packages, wheels and tires, brakes. So make sure to subscribe, leave a comment, tell us about your 997 Turbo, give us a like, and stay tuned because I got more Porsche 997 Turbo knowledge coming at you.